With President Trump's big legislative victory within reach at this point, will conservative critics from the Never Trump movement consider changing their tune about how things are going so far in the Trump White House? Rich Lowry, editor of the publication that once called Donald Trump a, quote, menace to American conservatism, is striking a drastically different tone these days. Quote, as the year ends, President Donald Trump is compiling a solid record of accomplishments. It's hard to see how a conventional Republican president would have done much better. Here now, Mark Thiessen, an American Enterprise Institute scholar and Fox News contributor, Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com and a Fox News contributor also, and Zach Picanis, former DNC Trump War Room director. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you.
Good to be with you, Martha. Hey, Martha.
Hello there. So, Guy, let me start with you because you were definitely in that Never Trump category. It's very interesting to see the folks at National Review coming around. We all remember the Against Trump National Review edition during the campaign. 21 people wrote editorials against President Trump or candidate Trump at the time. Now there are only 6 left that are still speaking ill of him, at least publicly. Is it time, looking at these accomplishments, to eat some crow, perhaps, Guy?
Well, my attitude about the Never Trump, quote-unquote, movement is that it died on Election Day. President Trump is the president of the United States. So people like me who had issues with him as a candidate, we have to move forward with the new reality, which is he's the leader of the free world, and praise and criticize as we see fit. And there have been a number of things, especially recently, to praise. We've talked about Justice Gorsuch a lot and some of these other lower court nominees that have been confirmed from the president that are very good. And then tomorrow or the next day, the president is going to sign a terrific tax reform bill that's going to cut taxes for 80% of the American people and make our international position in terms of the corporate rate much more competitive than it has been. So I think it serves no purpose for Trump skeptics like myself to sit here and pretend like when he does things that are good, it's not good, just because of some sort of personal animus. I don't think that's good analysis, and that's not the approach that I take.
All right. Let's play this soundbite from Javier Palmero last night, who was on our program, a Democrat who was against President Trump, really liking this bill. Here's what he said last night.
There's going to be areas where I clearly don't agree with the president. I didn't clearly agree on everything that President Obama did, for that matter. But the reality of it is, on this issue, I could not agree more.
Zach, on this issue, with regard to tax cuts, which Democrats have been very much in favor of over the years, cutting the corporate tax rate and the like, are you with the president on this?
With this bill? Absolutely not. I mean, let's be very clear. Donald Trump owns this bill, and I want to make that very clear, and we're going to be making that very clear across the country going into 2018. This was a bill that was written by 6,200 lobbyists. That's 57% of all lobbyists in Washington, D.C. had their hand in this bill. The Bush tax cuts.
How many had their hands in the Obama health care bill?
Less than 57%.
Doubt it.
The Bush tax cuts cut taxes for the 1% by 27% of the tax cuts of that bill went to the 1%. In this bill, 83% of the tax cuts go to the very wealthiest, the 1%.
Not true.
That's absolutely, it's Tax Policy Center. It cuts taxes by 40%. The
evaluation I read today said 84% of Americans get a tax cut.
Yes, there will be a tiny temporary tax cut for a lot of Americans that will expire. The tax cuts for the corporations, they remain permanent, and they are funded in part by cutting Medicare by $25 billion in 2018.
We just heard Chief Scalise. He believes that the individual cuts will remain in place, and I think it's going to be very tough for Democrats to argue to their constituents that they want to take that money back from them over the course of the midterms.
Why wasn't it in this bill?
Mark, you were not really never Trumper, but sometimes he was never Mark Thiessen. Look at this tweet that he said about you. He said, at Mark Thiessen is a failed Bush speechwriter whose work was so bad that he has never been able to make a comeback, a third-rate talent. Well, we don't feel that way here because we think you're a first-rate talent. We love having you on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, also, I tweeted out right after that the note that he had sent me 2 weeks earlier telling me how great my Washington Post column was.
He likes to do that, by the way.
He was conflicted about me. Let's put it that way. And I was conflicted about him, quite frankly.
Right.
But look, I mean, looking back at it now, I mean, obviously he's got a lot of self-inflicted wounds, from Charlottesville to the endorsement of Roy Moore. more that have distracted from the fact that he's got one of the best records of conservative accomplishment in his first 11 months in office of any president in American history, including, quite frankly, Ronald Reagan. I mean, he has passed historic tax reform for the first time in 3 decades since Ronald Reagan was in office. He is clawing back the regulatory state in this country, getting rid of regulations that have been a wet blanket on the economy at a rate faster than Ronald Reagan. And the results are very clear. We've had 2 quarters of plus 3% growth, and the New York Fed just announced that they're expecting almost 4% growth in the 4th quarter. He puts Justice Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, and he's filling the appellate courts, which end up making the final say on tens of thousands of decisions with young conservative judges who are going to be there for decades. This is revolutionary stuff, and that's just domestic policy. There's foreign policy I could get into too, but what he is accomplishing a record of massive achievement. Unfortunately, sometimes it's obscured by the Twitter storms and the noxious tweets and things that are unnecessary for him to do that are distracting from his record of accomplishments. So I wish he would do more of this and less of that.
But, you know, I read one evaluation of the president so far today that basically said that what makes him impolite in a number of areas is also what has made him effective when it comes to Jerusalem and other issues, where it has taken sort of a bold, brash tack to pull off some things that were difficult to do in the past. But Zach, you know, with regard to the economy, look at the Dow up 5,000 points in 1 year. That's never happened before. And, you know, after election night, people said that the market was going to tank, that we were going to go into this deep depression in the middle of the Trump presidency. That hasn't happened. You've got a GDP that looks like it might be at 4%. Why is that why are either of those things tough things to argue with?
Well, I mean, Obama, for example, in the first 11 months that he was in president, the Dow went up 29%. In the first 11 months that Donald Trump was president, it went up 24%. So if you're, I don't know what Donald Trump has done to take credit for 5,000 points in the Dow that Obama didn't, which actually when he actually passed legislation.
Growth was anemic in the 8 years.
Repealing all the Obama regulations. How about that?
Yeah, sure.
Tens of thousands of regulation pages in the Federal Register, Zach.
Yeah, you got it.
The Obama administration set a land speed record for regulating the economy, which is a wet blanket on the economy.
So why did the Dow grow faster under Obama?
Dramatically lifted those regulations and unleashed economic growth.
Under Obama? I mean,
percentage-wise, it was percentage-wise, but it was down dramatically. It's never been up 5,000 points in 1 year. It's an astronomical move.
It grew at a faster pace under Obama.
An astronomical add to market cap.
So, like, what are you talking about?
Guy, never, mister. Back in here one more time for you. You know, when you look go ahead.
I was going to say, the problem that Democrats are going to run into next year is they have been spending a lot of time over the last few weeks flagrantly lying to the American people that this is a tax increase on the middle class, and it's not. It is a tax cut for 80% of Americans. And so the one line that the Democrats love to repeat is, oh, by 2027, by which point the average American family would have gotten $7,000 of tax relief by 2027. It might expire. I think every Democrat should be asked every day, will you pledge not to allow the Republican middle-class tax cuts to expire in 2027, exactly how President Obama refused to allow the Bush tax cuts for the middle class to expire in 2012. He made them permanent. It's the same dynamic.
I mean, when you think about it,
argument.
Like entitlements, tax cuts are pretty hard to rescind. Zach, quick thought. Let's go.
I mean, what we're talking about here is the Republican-led CBO said that not only about what I said about the tax cuts, but they will actually raise premiums by 10% per year. So people will end up paying more.
Versus
so
Obamacare that raised them by 30, 40, or 100%.
For not buying health insurance.
This is premiums raising, not about
10% increase. My God.
Thanks, you guys. Good to see you as always. Thanks to all three of you.